Hello again, this is Margie here from Nature Health, and I'm doing one of my favorite chores in the garden, and that's looking after my worms. So I do a weekly worm check, and this is how easy it is, and they just keep giving me beautiful nourishment for my garden. At this time of the year, what I do is I'm going to firstly just have a look at what's going on, check and see what they've eaten. And look, the worms have come up from the lower level. Look at all these worms. They're having such yummy food. Oh my gosh, they're loving that. So it's covered with compost. There's heaps of worms. They don't like the light. They're already scurrying away from the light. So this is my week's kitchen waste. So I just pour my kitchen waste on there, and then if you don't cut it up into little pieces, the worms just take longer to get fat. So I just cut them up. So their best food is kitchen waste. They don't even mind the dust from your vacuum cleaner. This is all tea here. Bananas we'll cut up nicely. Not too much citrus and not too many onions. They're not mad about that. The odd one is okay. If you put eggs in, it's really important to break those eggs up. The eggs really are good for the compost. So I've just now covered the previous food. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to give them some nourishment. I call this my worm heaven box. Okay? So, what have we got in here? We've got chicken laying pellets here. We've got oat bran. We've got lime. We've got powdered milk. And we've got corn flour. So that is the recipe. You don't have to go and spend a lot of money and go and buy a bag of it. You can just buy these products and mix it into a bag like this. So, it's very easy. You can go on my website. It'll be on my website. It's 5 parts of the chicken laying pellets, 2 parts bran, 1 part milk, 1 part lime, 1 part corn flour. So this is, if for us, you can have a piece of grilled fish, and some people go and have oysters and clams and prawns. Well, this is the deluxe food for the worm farm. So all I need in here, I'm going to sprinkle this mixture across the top, just like that. So I just use 2 of those. And then I pop that back for next week. And some weeks, if the worms haven't eaten it all, then I don't give them any more. And then I might do it the following week. So you'll soon get used to the rate that your worms are eating. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to cover that with just a little bit of, it's not compost, it's just potting mix. So it's important that we don't put compost in there, because compost, what happens with compost, you can actually kill your worm farm overnight, because there are some organisms in there that are not conducive to a worm farm. I don't want to disturb anything, but I'm going to just lift this up and show you what's in the other. This is the feeding tray. In the second layer here, you can see there's still a little bit of feeding going on. So all the castings are sitting in this layer. There's a little bit of cabbage here, so I'll just pop that into the feed tray. So these are basically the castings sitting in here. So, and in here, that is pure castings. So now in here, this is what we would put on the garden. So come spring, that is pure castings. with a few little worms thrown in. But those castings, each plant at the end of winter, come early spring, gets this. So I'm bolstering my worm farm because I want all 4, 5, 6, 7. I want 7 trays of castings by the end of winter. So what happens to worms when they get cold? They stop eating and they stop pooing and they stop weeing. So you get no juice to nourish the garden and you don't get any puppies. So you might wonder, what is this blanket doing here? Our temperatures are dropping below 10. 10 is the temperature when worms just freeze. They just stop work. They just go to sleep. They hibernate. So what I do at this time of the afternoon, I just cover my worms up and they carry on feeding. But once a week you have to wash the worm farm. So watch what happens. We're in the top layer here and we just take one bucket and we wash the worm farm. The worms like a clean environment. They don't like a dirty environment. So we just wash all that down. And the tap of the worm farm is always open, right? So it's washing through. And now I make sure that my cardboard and my newspaper is wet. So I've covered up. And now I put the lid back on. And now my worms are satisfied for another week. They've got plenty of food. And as it's getting cool, I'm going to cover them up because I don't want them to think I've forgotten about them, and I don't care whether they live or die or they get cold. So this beautiful warm blanket was going to stop that icy wind from coming onto my worms. So I just tuck it in this side, wrap it around, tuck it in that side, and now my worms, because that's where the cold wind's coming from. So my worm farm is nice and warm. Now what do we do with all that wee that's coming in? You might have heard about how to activate water. So what I'm doing now, this worm poo has got all the nourishment, but it's not positively charged. So we're just stirring clockwise and anti-clockwise, clockwise and anti-clockwise, clockwise and anti-clockwise. So if you've got kids, they can help you because you need to do it for about 10 minutes. So once you've finished stirring and your worm poo is activated, you can use it straight without activating it. But when it's activated, it works almost overnight. You can see the plants jumping out of the ground. It is absolutely amazing. Because this worm poo is so concentrated and strong, I take one of these and I've measured it out, and then I dilute it with plain water. This is my water catchment area. So this is just plain rainwater. So that is diluted 10 to 1. And at 10 to 1 dilution, you can water anything and everything. This is penny royal that I use for the fleas for Roxy. This is a beautiful ground cover that I love. And of course, my tomatoes. And I've got a beautiful sage bush growing underneath here. The poor darling, I don't know how it's managing to grow underneath the tomatoes, but look at it. It's growing beautifully under the tomatoes. So with the worm wee, which that's what it is, some people call it worm tea, as it's leaking off now, it's important to use that day. You shouldn't wait for the next day and the next day. It needs to be used fresh out of the farm. That's at its strongest, and that's as most beneficial for your garden. So I welcome any questions. If you're thinking about setting up a worm farm, if you've got any questions about your existing worm farm, there shouldn't be any smells, there shouldn't be any flies, it's clean. So if you're having any problems, just let me know and I'll see if I can help you. If you like that video, click the like button, and please, if you want more about organic gardening, and worm farms are absolutely a vital key factor in organic gardening, and such a money saver. You don't have to buy expensive organic fertilizers. It's right there in your backyard, and it needs attention once a week. When you go on holiday, what are you going to do? You just add a little bit more food, a little bit more of that gourmet mixture, wash it before you go, and wash it when you get back, and that's it. So you can go on holiday for 3 weeks and not worry about your worms. They are completely self-supporting. Please go to my website. You can download this beautiful organic gardening ebook, and there's lots more information there. So have a fabulous day, and if you haven't got a worm farm, please consider getting one. Very easy and very inexpensive.